Well, I just got back from Bainbridge, Georgia's regional here. Share that I just got back and was able to share a deck list with y'all that I was able to top at the Bainbridge regional. What I mean by top, I was able to make the cut. So I made six with the deck I'm about to share with y'all, which was Mermail. However, this is a interesting version of the deck, which people have been speculating on whether if they want to run over the standard going first build. And with that in mind, this is my going second version of the Mermail deck. Played 7 rounds. Played against. There's a lot of representation between the new stuff with Alliance Inside with between Mitsurugi, Ryziels, and Malice being like the most common occurrences. I believe I came across 3 Mitsurugi Ryziels, 2 Malice rounds, a White Force. Well, I don't know if it's White Force. It was like Azumina, Kashtira, Fiendsmith, and Ryziel Rescue Ace. Oh, and another Mermail deck. So I'll share more details about what happened with those sets in the meantime. But let me go ahead and show off the brief deck breakdown. So the idea with this deck that I had was to go second with Mermails because the biggest upsides with Mermails is that if they go first, they almost always win because of the discard effect, Mooling Glacier, and everything that they set up on their first turn if uninterrupted. Aside from that, if they don't know what they're really going against at times too, they can end up losing pretty easily. But nonetheless, the fact that they could do everything so consistently and cause so much chaos in the very first turn, uh, when uninterrupted, you can't. No deck can really win against it. Now in Yu-Gi-Oh, obviously, when you roll a die, most people want to go first, especially if in people's right interest to go first, because you don't want to get hand looped or something like that many times. And when going second, uh, when you choose to go second, the reason why Tenpai was as strong as they did, aside from them having having broken cards, it was the fact that they going second know what they're going up against, a board break from there. And that's kind of the approach I took with this deck, was having more of like a almost like a Tenpai Dragon type of play style in a way, which it'll make more sense as I show the deck. But and there was definitely some surprises in this deck that shook a lot of people. But nonetheless, this is a 45 card main deck. I had to find the right ratios and everything to make shit work, to make everything work. So let me start off with probably one of the best cards in the deck. For well, at least the best card in the archetype. I'm just kidding. Neptibus is the most best card in the archetype. But for this strategy, Poseidra, the new card that came in from the last set from Supreme Darkness, Poseidra, the Stormy Atlantean. Playing 3 of these to this is the true board breaker card. It sets up all your Mermail like effects. This sets up so much and brings a huge body on the board that they kind of have to interact with it. If this gets impulse, then yeah, it'll hurt. But at the same time, if you're getting like a good effect of a like sending like dragoons or sending Neptibus or sending Shadows, whatever card you're sending with this, like one of the Atlanteans, you're plussing really well. But nonetheless, have many times where it's like where I play this is my opening hand, or I just somehow get it out with Abyss Shrine or even with Netibus. It's insane. The value of this card is too good on its own. This card is okay going first. It can still keep things rolling if you're going first, but seeing too many if you plan to. The reason why many decks don't run this going first, or at least 3 of, was because the fact that it didn't really do anything on its summon. The summon is what made it so good, is that you were able to target and then send for cost. This pretty much had a Neptibus effect but on crack, because it's on a big monster. When it's summoned, it's like a quick on summon effect to get rid of a card, and not even monster, face up or face down, any card on your opponent's field, and then send for cost like a Dragoon or any of your other Atlanteans, especially if you're sending away like infantry to pop a card on the field. You're getting 2 pops off of one summon. This card is so powerful in the Mermail strategy, but more specifically going second, and I felt like this is also the key inspiration on Megan Mermail's more of a going second strategy than going first. But my side deck will explain why going first is still a mandatory thing to not forget. Um, Triple Teus, uh, Mermail Abyss Teus. This card I've been so polarized with because on its own, of course, it can't do anything. You have to have a water monster to do anything with this card. The only good thing this card is good for is to give you, like 9 times out of 10, Abyss Shrine. There was a time where I got drolled after doing a Teus play, and I got Shadow Squad for some reason, and I got uh, Droll and Lockbird like one or two separate games, and I couldn't really do anything with it because I didn't have a Abyss Shrine in hand. I couldn't go for Coelacanth. Bad mistake. So sometimes I misplay a lot with Teus, but Teus, obviously is a good, safe starter. Because if they try to like negate Teus's effects, I mean they're a bad player. But if they are, you could set this up with your, sending heavy infantry, sending a shadow squad or whatever to like get things going, like on the effects of the summon, so you can chain block. This is really good just for like mainly chain block purposes. So Teus is still good, mainly just to get Abyss Shrine, which is probably up there in like the top three. Well, top. Mermail has so many damn good cards. Speaking of good cards, Triple Dragoon. This is mandatory. This never should have went back from 2 to 3, but I'm glad they did because oh my god, the amount of resource generating I was getting from all these games and playing Mermail so many times. And yeah, don't clock me, but mixed rarities, QCR, Platinum Ultimate Rare, Platinum Collector Rare. Uh, I want to get back that rarities at some point, but I'm broke. So AO sponsor me. But no, I shouldn't have to explain what Dragoons does aside from, for those who are understanding what this deck does. This is a non once per turn effect. If it goes to effect, if it triggers from the effect of being sent to the grave by a water monster, you get any sea serpent. The variety in sea serpents in this deck is fairly limited, but you have great choices between not only Netabus, but Poseidra, and getting this to search Poseidra is really good. But of course, whenever you're trying, the main thing you want to do with the Dragoons is get Deep Sea Minstrel or getting Moonling Glacier whenever you're doing the main combo. Of course, I mean this is all pretty standard like Mermail stuff, right? So far, like with Mermail, all the good Mermail cards, they all had there's 6 3-0s, so this is 1 2 3. This is the fourth of the play set. Abyss Shrine gives you the free I used to set up this card with just adding a level 7 for early combos when it came to getting Abyss lead in your hand, and but in getting Teus in the hand to get other things going. But of course, this card was just more broken ever since people started to run Coelacanth in the deck, which that card needs to be banned. But no, Abyss Shrine triggering, Net Abyss, triggering your other Atlanteans from hand or field, just like Poseidra, getting a free special summon into a Poseidra if you really need to push out for games, or to tag out, but mainly Coelacanth is the main combo line that you go with that. But the graveyard effect is also insanely stupid. I mean, yeah, it's just her sending this and discarding a card for cost in order to draw a card. But there's definitely, depending on your setup most of the time, if you don't really open strong, but you just have like a heavy infantry or like a Netabus in your hand, and you send this to go ahead and send off your Atlantean, like your infantry, marksman, or Nethabis, you're triggering their effects, which is going to either it's going to disrupt your opponent, especially if Poseidra in the graveyard. There are so many times where I use this effect, send Nethabis from your hand, draw a card, and then use the Nethabis effect to summon a Poseidra from the graveyard. Poseidra then uses its effect, send a card from deck to grave, and bounce a card at the same time. So it's like so stupid. Um, Bishrine is a god card. Speaking of god cards, uh, this will never go down. If I could play like 10 Nethabis, I will. Honestly, actually, no, that's stupid. Five, four would be great, but five. Technically, there is a fourth Nethabis. It's 1-for-1, but no, Nethabis is insane. One of the best starters in any deck. And of course, the last playset of the Mermail package, Shadow Squad. However, even though this card is good, seeing this in your hand is not my favorite thing. I mean, it's okay. I mean, yeah, that's fine. But it's mainly, I rather send it from the deck to grave in order to trigger its effect. It's in the hand is meh, because aside from, it doesn't do anything in hand, like, at all. Unlike Abyss Shrine, well, you could say that's the same about Nethabis, but, I mean, the discard to send a card to bump it to level 7 is only good during a Moonland Glacier, like, cover-up setup move, so you can don't skip your battle phase type of thing. That's the only thing you really would use that for. But there's been times where I had to use this because I had no other monster to, like, go into play. Send a Dragoon from my hand to get Poseidra, and then Poseidra was able to send this to summon Nethabis, and then Nethabis did the whole work. So honestly, this at 2 would be perfect. At 3, I'm not a fan of. Honestly, Shadow Squad is great, but not triple upgrade, in my opinion, because of the hard ones returns and everything for this, of course, is limiting. It's a great card, but at the same time, seeing it in your opening hand, aside from, the other Mermails, is not my favorite. Now, this one, I'm glad I kept at 2, is Pike. This is no longer a 3 of because there's no totally awesome setup, no Bahamut Sharks or whatever. So Pike at 2 is definitely the move, especially because every Mermail deck has a Coelacanth play, which I'll definitely show Coelacanth. But being able to, like, bring up Pike from, you can still do the whole setup between Nethabis, sending Shadow Squad's summon, adding Dragoons in the hand, summoning Shadow Squad, summoning Abyss Pike using the discard effect to send Dragoons, add a level 3, adding Abyss Shrine, and then using your Dragoons to get Deep Sea Minstrel for Hand Trap Rip, or Moonland Glacier for just going ahead and going for a straight setup. Nah. Yeah, this guy is insanely good. Well, good, but not at 3 of good. I'm definitely glad I kept that too. But especially if he's used his main effect one time, that's really all you need it for. But then when you use his, like, just having him as an extra body for, like, Coelacanth is, pretty good. Which I'll explain more on that. What do we have next? So because this is a going second deck, I got 2 copies of Heavy Infantry, and then 1 copy of Marksman in the main deck. Most Mermail decks originally would have just had 1, maybe 2 Heavy Infantry, but mostly 1, because opening in your opening hand at first turn doesn't do anything. I mean, most times when I decided to go from second to first, once I know I can go first when it was my choice if I lost a game. I would tag both of these out because I don't want to see them, because I'm trying to hammer my opponent. So that's how I'll win. But there's another way to win. But we got 2 heavy infantries, getting resources, get 1 pop from this. Poseidra, send another one to pop another face up is stupid. And then Marksman as back row stuff, which is in this format with, like, Mitsurugi's Ryziel, uh, Malice. They're only selling like one or two cards, maybe three, but not too many. But using your marksmen to get rid of stuff like that. Going second, obviously people are setting spells and traps now. So I mean, especially if they're searchable. So having that as a backup has always been a good thing. I've always liked having marksmen, but of course never if I was going first. What else we got? Ah, yes, the fish package. This card, super ancient deep sea king coelacanth, which I think only came in one copy in super rare in like one of the maze sets. Um, Unbelievably broken because you can literally summon four monsters at once as long as they're fish. Thankfully enough, I can have that many targets because I do run butterfly fish, which if it's in the hand on its own, it's an extra discard fodder, which is super nice. On the other hand, there's the weaker one, Shift. Even though Shift doesn't do anything in the hand, it's just an extra modern monster. If I have in my opening hand, which I've lost games having this in my opening hand, honestly, going first, or just in general, just having this in the opening hand is like, ugh, disgusting. But when you bring this out with coelacanth and butterfly fish and pike, usually you just get those three because most of the time it's a coelacanth, likely a dragoon's on the field because of net abyss effect or whatever the hell. You're most likely going to have one or two pike, and then the butterfly fish and the Shift. The setup that I kept doing, I'll I'll tease it. Well, I'll go ahead and spoil it now. The setup I kept doing was that if you add these levels up, it leaves a level 9, and there are two monsters you can get out that if you're playing like an aggressive type of build like mine, is you can use this whole three ofs, this whole trio into making Trishula. So after doing a Moonland Glacier play, oh, that's why I can get another pike because I Moonland Glacier people. After Moonland Glacier, you can then Trishula, get rid of one of the graveyard stuff, and then get another hand out their hand, another card out their hand. There is another one I'll get to later, but uh, doing that to my opponents a few times throughout the tournament was very silly. But if that was able to go off, that I for sure was able to win because they wouldn't be able to do anything. Um, this is also a god card. I think this card needs to be banned, honestly. To Deep Sea Minstrel, literally tagging herself in a water monster, reveal your opponent's hand and banish a card from it until the end of the turn. Sure, whatever. I mean, just don't banish a Malice card, right? But no, banishing a like a hand trap or Nibiru or just anything that's going to cause a disruption on your turn, or if something that you don't mind giving your opponent back to their hand, like by the start of their next turn. So definitely a hand trap is something that you probably would is 99.999% of the time what you're going to hit, and it protects your board from like getting Ash Blossomed, Nibiru especially, or Impulse. It's if you open with this like going first, I'm going to say three of going first because you won't. There's a hand trap format. Everyone's running hand traps, and seeing this card is definitely going to prevent that going first. I keep it at blind going second because it's a searchable target, and two, if I really see that my opponent has plus a lot and they have some sort of potential setup, even if your opponent goes first, they're not going to have an empty hand most of the time. So seeing what they do have in their hand just in case, like an Ash or Droll, whatever, go ahead and knock it out, and set up your other combo. But seeing multiple copies of this will be too damaging. And into the monster hand traps. Here are my ratios. So I'm running triple Fualos, insanely broken card, Maxi number 2, Perulia at 1 because I couldn't get another one before this. Honestly, if I had 3 Perulia, I would. Well, sort of because Malice, but this cooks Ryzio a little bit actually. Perulia is really good. Free draws. All these are free draws. Um, Now this can be a slightly conflicting build, but Droll and Lockbird in this format, I think it's super necessary. Every deck, every YouTuber saying the same thing. Having this card against Raiziel, Mouse, or just any deck really that every deck is searching, tutoring other cards out. This shuts down. I lost games because of Droll myself against other people's Drolls. So Droll Lockbird is like insanely strong. Even though I could play around, many decks can still play around Droll, but depending on your hand, if you're lucky enough to have a hand that could play around it, then you know, then Drolls whatever. But nonetheless, it still disrupts your plays, and it can disrupt it till the end of the turn. Droll and Lockbird is insane of a hand trap, especially in this format. And lastly, the singular Ash Blossom in the main deck. Reason why I don't have more than 3 in this deck is because ratios. I feel like this ratio, because seeing the Fua losses and Perulias make up their, whenever you're going second and you get a chance to play it, they cover for themselves. Most of the time, your opponent has to play something, especially against Mermail, because if Mermail is able to get something off and your opponent pretty much got turn skipped, they're going to OTK you, because having any of the Motramis, plus out of each other, getting a +1 from each of these, very essential. There's definitely some times where I definitely needed the draws from the Fu losses and the Perulias to get a better hand overall for resources for the Mermail decks to keep going on. My first opponent was a Malice player. First thing that came up, I blind second. Again, you don't want to go blind. Have Malice to go first ever, right? Especially if they have nothing to interrupt them with. I was able to Fu loss them. They decided to play the game and full combo into everything. By the time they summoned Ally Code Talker, the new main monster from boss monster from Alliance Insight that they have, to special summon all their Malice monsters basically from the graveyard. I By the time their Ally Code Talker got summoned, I drew into Impulse. Impulse stopped that summoning effect, which by the time I was able to draw into the next turn, I had 11 cards in hand. I was able to go ahead and break the rest of the board up with the Mermail stuff, but not just the Mermail stuff, the other stuff I have in here too, which is next. So, but no, the reason why I do run a set of Ash, but the other 2 are in the side deck, mainly for going first, and I'll explain more once I get to that. But yeah, those are my ratios for for like the monster hand traps. I'll just go ahead and say I got the trap hand traps too. Uh, 2 impulses and 1 infinite impermanence. If I can get 3 impulse, that would have been fantastic. Uh, Especially with the numbers though. I think with ratios in general, I would say 2 is actually fine. I liked it at 2. I saw it a good amount of times when it mattered the most. And then infinite impermanence is good, especially if it really needs a hit that one card that's causing disruptions, like detonator, or if they have a barrier statue, right? Obviously the water barrier statue is not doing anything, but against me, but just something, right? Something that's a floodgatey monster. It could hit Baguska or something like that. You never know, and it will force your opponent to interact with it most of the 9 times out of 10. So having infinite impermanence go off at least one time during your interactions, first or not first, going second, is fine. But multiple copies of this gets it too clunky. I'm like, if they only pass their turn on one monster and you impermanent, and then the rest of your hand is another couple 2 hand traps, including impermanence, one of your fish monsters, and then like Shadow Squad, you can't play the game. You can't really do anything, because that's one of the biggest weaknesses with Mermail, aside from being a strictly a graveyard reliant deck. They need each other to go off of one another. Unless you raw open Neptibus, all the other Mermail Atlanteans need each other to go off and do things. So that's why the ratios for those are at 3, but these are not, because we don't need to see these often. But when they do come up, uh, then it's perfectly fine. But we want to make sure our frequencies for our Mermails, uh, you know, line our Mermail lines are more consistent than our disruptions. So that was my idea going to it, because the ratios mattered so much when it comes to like having the options and varieties of, because all the hand traps I presented, so far have some form of like gray line of disruption on all the decks that are out there, for the most part. So they all have some not better than others. Of course, I will tag out Droll for Artifact Lancia, but they all have some sort of uh, great setup against all the decks in the format. But having too many of the same kind, because you only use once per turn during some of these, like Ash Blossom, having multiple Ash Blossoms in your hand, you're going to lose. Most your odds of losing are higher at that point. So let me go ahead and bring up the main setup of the going second deck. Triple Ultimate Slayer. So I was kind of getting clowned on for like, why are you running triple Ultimate Slayer? The times this has really won me games, it, as a blind going second deck is incredible, because what is the top few decks of the format doing? We got White Forest running into all different types, so you really have all the options to go for between the fusions, synchros, and XCs. Uh, and links, of course. But then you have Mitsurugi Raizio. Most, even though, yeah, the rituals or whatever, but it's all XCs. You want to get rid of Detonator and that type of stuff. That's kind of what Ultimate Slayer was mainly used during the Raizio like outbreak back in the day, when that was tier 0, tier 1, whatever. And Ultimate Slayer was a great answer for it. But they're still around, so there's that. But then there's Malice links, their links, whatever, are strong, especially like ones like the Allied Code Talker, and some of their other like Malice monsters that are, that would cause a lot of disruptions. But as far as other setups, this definitely was answer to Detonator. I didn't have an option to go into the synchros much at all. It was mainly just to hit links and the XE stuff. I also have an option to, if I was facing against Azumina White Forest, or I want to say Fiendsmith, but Azumina White Forest, when they summon the Omni Negate, the Ilia, there's a fusion option for that here, but it's a little bit unconventional for this type of deck. But it makes sense, of course, when I'll show it. And then my One-Us spells in this deck, because this deck, I built this deck to have variety and have toolbox for be able to go into things when I need it, if I see it. So most Mermail decks will have one of these. That's perfect essential. You need one of these in every freaking deck you're running right now, because mulch armies, Ash, all hand traps. It's literally anti hand trap. Screw hand traps, and that's, well, except for Imper or Impulse. But this will literally, stop all that. I was thinking about keeping one for one or not running one for one, but I think there's been times where, one for one has been pretty good on, summon at the abyss. They get rid of it before I use the effect. Okay, one for one, some of the other net abyss. Okay, let me play the game. So just having a fourth net abyss basically by itself, perfectly good. Oh, it's thunder and lightning right now. Triple tactics talents. It's at 1, which honestly, having multiple copies would have been great, but of course 1 is actually perfectly fine. And then one thrust. I hate, there were so many times where I was originally deck testing this. I believe the night before at locals, or at least recently, I've been seeing Thrust in my opening hands, like like more than one copy of Thrust multiple times. And that's the one thing about some of these decks here. Having multiple copies of the same card can get very frustrating, especially if they're once per turn, because they're dead cards in your hand most of the time. And especially in this deck, you need all the gas you can go with in order to keep your combos going and, overwhelm your opponent. But uh, Thrust was good. There's thrust targets in the side deck. Uh, Thrust can also get you the Ultimate Slayer if you're going second. Say like they try to do some monster stuff on your Mermail setup initially. You use Thrust to either get talents to do whatever, or if you can if there's a really problematic extra deck monster out, you can just search out Ultimate Slayer and then cash money. That is the main deck. Um, Let me go ahead and go into my extra deck. Let me start with my links. I'm pretty sure these are all mostly essential Mermail stuff. Coral Anemone at 1. Abyss Keeper at 1. Abyss Keeper is mainly used to, in case you need to make a Coelacanth play, but Coelacanth is in your opening hand, so you make this guy drop the Coelacanth from your hand because Coelacanth is broken, and yes. But mainly I was using him as my um, copy of what to send for Ultimate Slayer. Just it's not going to do anything in the grave. I don't really need that. The fact of the matter is I'm using Ultimate Slayer to have an uninteractable shuffle from your deck type of shuffle back to your deck type of situation. So that's really all that matters. So this going into grave, especially if I really don't need it, it's a perfect target to just get it out the way. Honestly, Mermail King and Netbis is hasn't really done too much for me this at this tournament. Mainly he's really only good if you're going first with a full board setup. If you have the full gas to go into it, haven't really been going into him for much or anything. This card though, however, especially if you're if say like if you have a weak going first hand at any point, or even if you're going have a fairly weak going second hand but still was able to do something with this, uh as long as you have a water, well, you don't have to have a water monster, but if you have a monster in your or have a card in your hand to use her discard effect to get a Mermail, most likely you can get Shadow Squad, but it's probably not the best one. Actually, Shadow Squad's not probably the best. If you sort, well, no, Shadow Squad's kind of fine. I would say, what are the Mermails out there? Abyss, hard to get Abyss Run is fine. It's pretty much what you want to do, especially if you're setting up for the next turn. But the main idea with this is to get this, uh, you know, to set up into another Mermail. But she's also a sticky body, so if you have a strong water monster like Poseidra in your graveyard, if your opponent is not aware of her destruction effect by battle or by card effect and bringing back a water monster to cause an interruption or just have a body on the field, they will likely lose the game. And that's exactly what happened at this tournament because some people didn't know her other effect caused the special summon to happen. But she's a good, you know, option to keep on the board. Especially if you're not having the strongest hand, but you're trying to set up for the next turn. Especially if you just got Droll and Lockbird, and then you can just set it up for the next turn. Um, she's super goated. Really like Abysslacia. Um, let's go over the XCs. Actually, before that, yeah, let's go over XCs. Abyss Trite is quite essential. She definitely replaced Abyss Gaios for being the level 7. It gives you a free monster basically on summon. You don't have to. I wish you can do more with the detach aside from the Abyss Trap, which the Abyss team trap is good only if you are like trying to steamroll your opponent. But with the way you're trying to build these decks, you don't really need the trap and whatever. But it's like using her to bring out an extra body, and then also having the extra damage bonus, she can help close out games. But she's really good, giving you free body back after Xe summon. But mainly it's just her to go into Poseidra Abyss. um, the Atlantean Dragon Lord. But no, yes, Poseidon Abyss is insane when it comes to going first or going second. The going first strategy, obviously, you send have this go to the graveyard when you try to link it off or whatever. The idea is to have link this off with Coral Anemone, with the materials on him, and then into King Netabus. When his effect triggers to discard one of your water monsters, like let's say for example, a Dragoon in your hand, if you somehow still have a Dragoon in your hand, you go ahead and use that his effect to resolve by special summon level 3 or lower monsters. Just like Coelacanth, you're special summoning so many monsters all at once. And then on top of that, Netabus King is going to use his effect to get the equip spell that is a Foolish Burial slash, not Foolish Burial, but a premature burial, with, or from summoning from graveyard or summoning from hand in Mermail or Atlantean, which came up many times. That equip spell that I had one of here, even it's a one of, and it can recycle some cards back, which doesn't really come up too often. But the fact that you can use it as a extender piece is very nice. But this on top of his other effect though, where it's like you could detach a material, which could likely trigger one of the material effects. Sending for cost one of your Atlanteans or whatever, or just any water monster, but you could send heavy infantry or whatever, and then his effect is bounce up to 3 cards on your opponent's side of the field back to the hand, non-targeting by the way. So if your opponent has a wall of cards that is untargetable, whatever, this guy says no, you can just clear it up and then attack him for 3,000 and whatever else is on your board for however much else. So Cassandra is insanely good. Um, Now let me talk about Abyss Gaios. Abyss Gaios at the time, you know, legendary card. I hate how expensive he was originally because he didn't get that many printings outside of his own set for Abyss Rising. But yeah, his even though he has like a skill drain esque effect for like current monsters on the field on your opponent's side and whatever, there's so many things you can do to play around this guy. It's so bad for seeing him. Honestly, I wish I could have cut him. There's times where I did have to use into him, but not the times I did go into him, I kind of lost because my opponents can play around him. So I didn't really like Abyss Guys all that much, sadly. Um, what else we got? The Virtue Dragon. I was mainly using the Virtue Dragon's effect not to get the trap, especially if I'm going first, because I probably my opponent already scooped at that point after they got Moon Glacier and the rest of the hand ripped out from the rest of the effects there. So the Virtue Dragon didn't really need that, but times where I need the Virtue Dragon to add more resources back, especially if you're using Butterfly Fish as material, get Butterfly Fish back and get like a Dragoons back or whatever. So yeah, pretty cool card. Um, I just got this in the mail the night before. Snow Dust Giant. Really, it's just to get the what would have been Bahamut Shark into Totally Awesome became just a dead card that just triggers Dragoon's effect to get you a free special summon when you need it. Not special summon, but a free Sea Serpent from using his effect. This can help you balance out your Moonland Glacier setup to get you 5 water monsters in the graveyard if you were using the Netabus effect. Get a search and then get Moonland Glacier and then Moonland Glacier out after this got its detach. So there are times where this had helped and gave me a plus off of it, so not bad. Um, Stealth Kraken, I've only played this one time in a weird interaction with my one other opponent where I used his effect to clear off one of his monsters, burn him, but then after it got one of those monsters got cleared off that I needed off, then I was able to play the rest of the game with all the other cards I needed for my setup. So I saw this card one time. Now I know this card can, if for whatever reason you're playing into time, which when you're as aggressive with Mermail's first or second, depending on what your opening hand looked like in this format, the game should not last that long at all. So rarely ever had the need to use it for a time, but it can be used as a time card, so keeping it in the deck is okay. Now, this card was uh very interesting. Typhon. So Typhon came up quite a lot actually, because there's times where it's like my opponent did all this shit with their cards, especially against I had to play against a Mermail mirror match. They had King Netabus, they Trishula'd me, and they summoned the Amana, this guy, not in my deck, but Dragite, um, Emancipator Dragite, the spell and trap negator. So, and I had a good hand. I needed to use my spells or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna normal summon. Uh, I think what I did was I tried to I normal summon Netabus, and I think I try to get the effect Dragoon, get a Dragoon, whatever, to go off. And then they negated it with negated Netabus with Ash Blossom or something. So I'm like, okay, I couldn't really do much with it if I remember correctly. No, it was a Shadow Squad. I normal summoned Shadow Squad and just played into Typhon. So I played into Typhon. Dragite couldn't do anything, and this was bigger than both Trishula and King Netabus. So I ran over uh the Trishula, use Poseidon to get rid of King Netabus, and then went ahead and did his effect to bounce back the Dragite. So this card came up quite a lot, even though there's times where I didn't really win any. I think the times where I did play him, I didn't win the games, but the way this came up when I needed to kind of like have some sort of line of protection to keep me going is very needed. So I liked having the Typhon in this deck. Um, when it comes to back to the Ultimate Slayer discussion, cards that I was using to um for my XCs for like detonator or just getting rid of the XCs monsters, mostly Gaius. I never really needed Gaius for literally anything, or Sky Kraken, but most of the time I just got rid of the Gaius because I never needed to use them for anything, and if I did try to use them, I was getting crushed. I was just being a bad player if I did that. Yeah, so Abyss Giles was not worth anything unless I was just sending him off of Ultimate Slayer. Speaking of Ultimate Slayer, this was my fusion target. So if I didn't get a chance to play against a lot of fusion based decks, especially against White Forest, Ozamina, which I was expecting to play into like White Forest, Ozamina a lot. Thankfully, I didn't. If I did, Ultimate Slayer would have plus me so dang hard by getting rid of that Ilya, getting the Garurus to search me, or not search, but draw a card, and continue the board right from there. So, um, I didn't have that happen during this tournament, but that's definitely a fantastic option because Mermails need as much gas as they need to continue making the plays. Now, as far as my synchros, the synchros I used mostly was Trishula, because after you Moulin Glacier somebody, or even if you're not even doing that, if you get the coelacanth out, when you get Shift into Butterfly Fish into Pike, level 2, 3, 4, level 9, and requires 2 non-tuners to summon. So that perfect lineup leads into a free Trishula, which gives you a big ass body on the field plus um, a big body on the field, and to go ahead and get the free banish of the card that you discard, one of the cards you discarded with Moonland Glacier, and then just an additional card from their hand. That's not to include the card that you've already banished with Deep Sea Minstrel, but of course that card will come back in turn, but that's likely one of the hand traps, right? So you use this to get rid of any of the additional stuff that they do end up having, especially the ones that you were glad that's in the graveyard, but would be much happier if they got banished, like Fiendsmith, which that happened. Banishing, hitting Moon Glacier hitting the Fiendsmith in the hand, and then Trishula by banishing it. That was a moment. This one is uh, whenever you're going, because these are both level 9. This is the Ravenous Crocodilus. Is that what it's called? Ravenous Croco Dragon. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that last part though. The the third word. Um, this card's pretty good, especially if you don't really have that many like good setup into a level 9. Like with the shift setup into whatever, shift could make this on the opponent's turn, give me like one or two draws, and then I can use his effect to pop, discard and pop. That never really came out. I never really had to got to a point to need to use that if I really wanted to like try that hard. Really, what ended up happening was Poseidra would bring out the level 3 minstrel, level 3 butterfly fish, and level 3 abyss shrine, and then I sync those three up to make this guy to give me a pot of greed, draw 2 cards basically, so more resources. So basically the idea was, when you get coelacanth out, you make Trishula after you summon your 3 fishes, and then on the following, when you're following up with the rest of your turn, when you make Poseidra, go ahead, or Poseidra Abyss goes to the grave, using Poseidra Abyss to summon back out. You go to Croco Dragon to get the +2, to draw 2 cards basically. Now this one is interesting. DC Prima Donna. Now this is of course used for the whole barrier statue setup, which I have barrier statue in the side deck, and I never really had to really use it for anything or really seen an opportunity to bring her out. I think there's a different like tuner fish that is supposed to bring her out with Pike, but I never really. I don't have that specific fish monster, which is another weird name similar to Croco Dragon, but use that to get her to do the whole, use whatever monster that you sent with Minstrel in order for her to go ahead and bring on Barrier Statue, and then under King Neptibus to make it untargetable. So she's stupid, but at the same time she also has a graveyard effect, just like if like as a Ultimate Slayer target if you have to use her. If I was playing against like a Blue Eyes deck, this is or Centurion or something like that, she would have been the target to send, and then I would have used her other effect, which, if I remember correctly, it was target 1 banished card shuffle into the deck. So if you deep sea minstrel like a hand trap or whatever card you sent, that you can use her uh Ultimate Slayer, Ultimate Slayer her, send her, use her effect in the grave to go ahead and like return whatever banished in the graveyard, or shuffle it back, like Malice cards or whatever. But never had a chance to really see her, really implement her to do anything like that. So she never came up at all for me during this tournament. Um, and now this is the spicy part, the side deck. So let me get um the least interesting stuff out the way, because obviously there's the Malice decks. That's like the new thing because of the new support they got. So I'm running 2 Lancias and 1 Artifact Sanctum, because one I could Thrust Sanctum, even though Thrust is at 1 in this deck. But if I'm going first, this is going in my deck. If I'm going first or second, if I know I'm playing against Malice, these are both going in the deck just for a full Malice turn skip. But against the Malice matchups, I didn't get to see them often, especially I only had 2 Malice opponents, surprisingly, so they didn't really come up much often. The other thrust targets, the Essentials, Dimension Barrier to stop the, Xe, Synchros, Fusions, whatever, Rituals, and then different Dimension Ground. I didn't see them when I was going first, and I didn't really see a need to use them when they already kind of like ripped their hand with Moonling Glacier and that type of stuff. Speaking of, Moonling Glacier, so obviously Moonling Glacier is one of the scariest cards in the Mermail strategy that everyone fears, which rightfully can be banned also, honestly. Mermail should have a lot more cards banned. There's like 3 cards I think that were banned. Freaking DC Minstrel, Coelacanth, and Moonling Glacier. They should be banned, honestly. But no, getting 2 cards out of your opponent's hand with this card fairly easily. The main strategy going first is to get this to go off. After Deep Sea Minstrel, get rid of one of the cards that you don't care to bring back to the hand, especially if it's a hand trap. using this to hit some of their combo pieces or their starters or whatever the hell that is, like for free. They can't really do anything with them most of the time, so helps a lot. Um, so now so the idea with this deck was I guarantee myself going first. Once I know, if I end up winning the whatever match I won, I'll make sure I'm staying second because 9 times out of 10 my opponent still wants to play first, do their full combos, and hopefully contest me. Uh, but then there's a opportunity for the opponent to go ahead and think about what strategy I'm doing, which I'm trying to board break. I'm trying to go second so I can ruin your plays, meaning I'm going to open a lot of hand traps, I'm going to open a lot of board breakers, not really too many starters. I'm not going to run Mullen Glacier if I'm going second because, you know, I'm trying like why would I try to rip your hand if you've already used up your entire hand to make your own insane board, right? You want to think that. But then they there are times this whole going second strategy right now is more of a mind game with your opponent because it's you don't know if your opponent won't know exactly if by the time you do go first and you Mullen Glacier their hand in. So if you do win your first game, you stay going second. If you lost your going second game, anytime you lose a game, you're given the choice to go first. If you're given the choice to go first, you can guarantee your going first setup with getting the Moulin Glacier, with getting the minstrels for any hand trap situations that you want to get rid of. Uh, the barrier statue thing so you can set that up for the following turn because this is kind of pointless if you're going second because what are you stopping special summoning? They've already got their boss monsters out in the field, so this is your stuff going first. And this also explains the Ash situation. The only thing I found purpose for Ash is to stop mulch armies. Yes, it can stop, the special summons, the essential searches for certain decks. That's what I feel what that one of is meant for, to kind of like stop that if in that case. But if you're going first, uh you want to make sure your opponent doesn't have resources in their hand. So if they try to mulch harm you, you want to ash that as soon as possible so they don't get resources. Because if they keep getting resources from the mulch armies, Mullen Glacier is not going to do anything aside from just like they got all these extra cards in their hand, but they were still able. They lost 2 cards, but they plus 5. So it's stupid to think, you know, that running this, adding as many ashes as you can first. I'm thinking I considered running an ash blossom as my extra call by the grave, but more specifically against Molcharmies or as a flex for other like special summons or whatever from the deck, or draws or whatever the case may be. So, and then also for going first, if I'm for sure going first and I have got rid of my board breakers like Ultimate Slayer, I could fit in stuff like Virtue Stream with getting the search from the Virtue Dragon to set it up for the next turn and need that from there. For this tournament, I didn't actually have to come across this like at all for that, but the 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 star setup in this deck that got me all the way to the end of the top bracket that pretty much helped me won the top cut basically. Heatwave. This card needs to be banned. This is a card that needs to be banned because every time I played this on my opponent, when I was guaranteed to go first, I won because as long as it wasn't Odeon or like Labyrinth or like a trap deck or whatever, Malice Mitsurugi Raizel, Fiendsmith, what are they going to do when they get heat wave? They have to pass their turn. All they can do if they have like Imperm or the Dominus cards, which the Dominus cards are just going to stay in their hand. But Imperm's also like going to stay in their hand too. But Call by the Grave, really, that's all they're going to do is just set the Call by the Grave and then and whatever possible trust that they did have in their like strategy. But that never really happened. Every time I play this, they start their turn, draw a card, pass. And then the moment that happens, I have, the rest of the Mermail stuff to go ahead and just OTK my opponent, use Minstrel's effect that I have a 3 of. I likely opened a Minstrel in my hand at some point, check to see if they have a Nibiru, got rid of it, and then proceed to win the game. So no, Heatwave is insanely disgusting of a card, and in the Mermail strategy, especially when opponents tend to uh try to go for like the Molch Army stuff in the very beginning, like draw phase, standby phase, so that they'll get the talents, hit. Some people would, uh draw phase, Molch Army Fool loss. Okay, I open with Heat Wave. I'm just going to go ahead and Heat Wave pass. What are you going to do? You didn't get your draw from your Fool loss or from your Molch Army, whatever, and you're just going to take this Heat Wave. What's your next move? Nothing. Cool. My turn. You didn't get Molch Army. Go. Plus, cool. My turn. I'm just going to kill you now because you have no resources to stop me. So there is one other time here. It was like one of my it was my semifinal match. Well, I would say my sixth round out of the 7 rounds I played. I was going first. I didn't have a strong board. What I did though was I ended on it was a weird setup. I had Abyss Glacia on the field with Moonling Glacia. Moonling Glacia was able to get the 2 cards hand ripped from the player's hand. I did rip a Nibiru in their hand, so they couldn't play into it after the setup. But I had another water monster in hand. It was a barrier. It was the barrier statue, and I want to say I had uh Abyss Shrine or something like. No, it was heavy infantry in my hand. It was heavy infantry, barrier statue, um, Abyss Glacia, and Moonland Glacia. Uh, from there, and then it was against Mitsurugi Raizel. The Mitsurugi Raizel player tried to go for a Call by the Grave. I had Call by the Grave set, and then the 2 cards I wrote with Moonland Glacia was the Habakiri, the new Mitsurugi ritual that used the once per duel effect at times when tributed, and they had Crosshead Designator, but they had another Habakiri in hand when I looked through Minstrel, so I knew they had it one in hand and one in grave. So when they were able to do some of the Raizio combo, they got Detonator. Detonator was trying to bring Habakiri. I call by the Habakiri, preventing it from being added and also preventing it from using its effect for the rest of the turn. Cool. So then they reacted with Detonator, Pop Mool, and Glacia. Okay, I'm out of my battle phase. So what am I leading into? So after they popped the Moonland Glacia, Abyss Glacia was able to get destroyed by battle because he didn't read the card that I could summon like a water monster. I somehow had a Poseidra in the graveyard, the main deck Poseidra, use it to summon, bounce back the detonator successfully along. Well, I think well, no, yeah, I bounced back the detonator successfully. Send a dragoons to go ahead and get Abyss Shrine, or it was something weird. Um, I didn't get Abyss Shrine. It was something. I think I just sent uh heavy. No, it wasn't heavy. I sent a Mermail to the grave in order to activate its effects. I think it was dragoons. No, no, all dragoons were already in the graveyard. I had to use Shadow Squad, and then Shadow Squad got me a Netibus on the field for later. So, but what I think no, they stopped my special summon for Shadow Squad. They ashed that. So what ended up happening was when it was my turn, I couldn't attack. So what ended up happening was I drew into a copy of Heatwave with a board already set up, and he had a board already set up, but my Poseidra was bigger than his Duo Drive and his um other monster he had on the field. So what ended up happening, I drew this, played this, pass turn, and all he could do was put his duo drive and his other XZs into defense and pass his turn. And then by the time I drew into another card, I was already gassed up. I did get a Abyss Shrine in hand. I think that's somehow I think I drew into a Abyss Shrine or something. But I normal summoned the barrier statue in my hand, so if I do get Nibiru or attempted to get Nibiru, he couldn't do it. And by that point I was able to use the I used the Abyss Shrine's effect on a Shadow Squad. I brought a Shadow Squad to hand. And then during the previous turn, because I sent Dragoons brought back the no, I don't remember. So, but I somehow had Shadow Squad in hand. Because the previous turn I used Neptibus as my normal summon, so I couldn't summon that or the barrier statue. But in any case, normal summon the barrier statue, use a Bishrine to send Shadow Squad. They somehow ashed that too. And then, okay, whatever. Shadow Squad summoned Netibus. Netibus sent a Poseidra to add a Poseidra. So the Poseidra I added a hand, I attributed the Netibus in order to summon itself out. Netibus triggers to go ahead and summon the other Poseidra from the graveyard. And then I got the free bounce on the duo drive. And then I did a full setup and pretty much wrecked his board. Heatwave, God card needs to be banned. Reason why I was able to top the regional. Every time I played it going first, when I did see it, I saw like 4 maybe 5 times throughout the entire tournament. Every time I did resolve this, I won that game. So yeah, this card is insane. I'm happy with how I did. I'm more or less happy of how I structured the deck into this format. There's definitely some times I could have played better than I did because there were many times where I, kept messing up, especially against my earlier opponents. But um, this overall strategy I definitely felt like was something that many players were not expecting to go into and was able to surprise many people expecting. So yeah, the ratios of this I felt like was incredible with the way the versatility of it all came about along with just what I was able to do. But yeah, I just do this number without messing up the screen. Cool. Um, but yeah, uh, Coelacanth needs to be banned. Poseidra is carrying this deck insanely well, especially as a going second deck. Poseidra's carrying it. The Molcharmies are carrying it. Um, Drolan Lockbird is carrying right now. Ultima Slayer is carrying right now. Impulse is carrying right now. There's so many of these cards that are carrying you going second that going these other Mermail cards letting you go first is first or second, you have so many options to do so many different things. And if you add in, some versatile options like the shift plus uh butterfly fish. Butterfly fish has came back so many times with the recursion. The recursion effects for butterfly fish was so nice. But being able to use this, and then a pike to go into a crocolisk or into a Trishula whenever you needed it, they came up at the right time so many times. I loved it. But yeah, seeing the one thrust is perfectly good. Seeing the talents uh every so often, once in a while, was great. Uh, but yeah, I think the ratios in this was perfectly balanced. I could have probably added another droll, but I didn't like the idea of having more than 2 droll, especially with a full water deck. And running impulse. That was like the only thing with like Molcharmies, Lockbird in impulse was that this conflicts with that. Same thing with getting, Lancia. I would like to know what other people thought about this setup. Um, Big shout out to my Columbus local team, who I believe a lot of our local members from Columbus who also got into the top 8 with me. And I had to play against two people from my same region locals too in Columbus, so that was fun. Also, my only losses with this deck was between another Mermail player. They didn't make top cut, unfortunately, but it was another Mermail player. The main reason why I lost was because I played terribly. I had the wrong triple tactic talents option choices. I was given. I I deep sea minstrel the wrong card to try to like set up with talents. There are so many things that happen during that Mermail mirror match where I felt like I think I was playing too cocky into it because I beat him game one going second, but then I couldn't do anything going first. I lost my setup going first, and then going second the other time around, I somehow messed that up too. So that was my one loss against in the early part was against another Mermail deck, and then my final opponent who won the whole event at table one was a Malice player, and the way he piloted his Malice deck was incredible. And the choke points I'm trying to deal with hit with the new Malice support setup is very scary. So getting your uh Lancias to 3 or maximize your Lancia options is very necessary in this format because of the fact that Malice can do so much right now, despite them having got hit on the ban list pretty hard. So that's pretty much just about it.